All right, well, welcome everyone to another edition of the Unpredictable Pipeline. In this short video series, we are highlighting marketing leaders who have pivoted their teams, their companies, many times their industries, into the headwinds of what was 2020. And now that we are in 2021, Shane, still some headwinds facing us. But you know what? We're gonna get through them with a smile and occasionally with a little ride on our Pelotunes. And we're going to make it happen. So Shane Murphy-Reuter, he's the SVP of marketing at Intercom. And Shane, maybe just start. First of all, thank you very much for carving out time to do this. And maybe just start by introducing yourself, your role, what your go-to-market priorities have been in the last year, and what's changed.
Yeah, sure. So you said, yeah, Shane Murphy-Reuter. I run marketing at Intercom. It's pretty typical definition of marketing, everything from product marketing, brand marketing, comms, campaigns, DG, yeah, the whole thing. Prior to Intercom, I spent probably half my career in consumer marketing, where I was more focused on the sort of brand and product marketing side, and then shifted over to being more focused on the demand gen side when I came into B2B. So really spent a lot of my career trying to become more of a decathlete in marketing than a specialist, which kind of go, one way or the other. And so this year has been, 2020 was definitely the year where everybody's had to use all of their experience to try and figure out how to get through the thing.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting year for sure.
Yeah. As we started this series kind of in the early fall of 2020, we had people that were sort of working their way through, the year, making adjustments, starting to rebound a little bit. And now that we're into 2021, I think, the two questions sort of meld together a little bit. One is, what were some of the big pivots you had to make last year in your go-to-market strategy, and which of those pivots have some staying power as we now sort of bulldoze our way into 2021?
Yeah, we were pretty fortunate. Fortunate in some ways. Our strategy that we had developed coming into 2020 really had two main parts to it. One was Intercom, the technology that we provide can be used by many different buyers and many different audiences. Like if you take Drift, for example, one of our competitors, they very much focused primarily on the sales audience, using the technology for sort of pipeline generation. Our big focus going into this year was the support audience for us seemed like the biggest market opportunity. That's not to say that we're walking away from the other ones, but support was like this big TAM, frankly. And then also our technology was absolutely core to what they're doing. They have to communicate with their customers, right? And so we had decided that would be our primary focus. And the second decision that we made was around go-to-market motion, which I'm sure your audience are, given your predictable pipeline, are probably most interested in, which is traditionally Intercom was built on a very product-led growth go-to-market motion. And we were shifting as we moved more up market into a sales-led approach.
Uh-huh.
And those are sort of the two key components of our strategy. I would say going into the year, we were trying to balance, like, how quickly do you go after those new opportunities without leaving behind your legacy and your sort of like cash cows.
Yeah.
When COVID hit, it became unbelievably clear to us that those two opportunities were even more important for two reasons. One, taking the support audience, for example, suddenly companies across the world were getting smashed by customers. Like if you're a travel company, can I get a refund? What's going on? There's just the amount of questions that customers had exploded at the same time as support teams were now having to go remote. And so this kind of like idea of having a call center with 100 people sat beside each other answering just went out the window.
Yeah.
And so we saw huge growth behind our support business anyway, organically, and so really doubled down on that one. And then on the go-to-market motion side, what we found, and I think a lot of businesses found this, that our small business, we had a lot of contraction in our small business. So our smaller customers, everyone was like looking at their balance sheet and going, okay, how do we reduce costs?
Uh-huh.
They weren't churning, but they were like, okay, maybe we don't need Intercom on these pages or whatever, contracting. Whereas our more upmarket customers, where we had a relationship with them from a sales perspective, weren't affected. In fact, they were doubling down on sort of the technology we provided. And so it gave us even more fuel to go that direction. And so really what it ended up doing was we didn't necessarily pivot, but what we ended up doing was going much more aggressively after those two opportunities than we had originally planned.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting as we have this series, you know, some of the conversations we have are around sort of, you know, your sales and marketing motions and different channels that you're using, channels that are no longer available as we can't get out, at least for the time being. But increasingly, we're having those addressable market conversations as well, saying, okay, like, you know, what are the assets that we have as a business? What do we offer? And are there other greener fields we can be looking at? Like, as you guys look at 2021, how are you balancing sort of optimizing go-to-market motions while just thinking strategically about the market itself and which markets you're selling into?
Yeah, well, I think that question does go back to what I was saying before. You know, when it comes to the TAM question, one of the reasons that we did decide that support would be our primary focus was the TAM there is absolutely massive. And our type of technology, like if you think about, you know, Intercom thinks a lot about jobs to be done as a framework. We wrote a book on it. And the whole like methodology or the sort of philosophy of jobs to be done is that you try and figure out what's the real job that your product is being hired for. I'm sure, you know, a lot of your listeners have heard about this. And if we think about, and typically speaking, companies have a stack that they build in order to solve that job to be done. When it's small business, the stack is, they look for platforms can do it all in one, right? They don't have the resource capability to stitch together 15 different tools. They try to get like one tool that would do it all. Like MailChimp is a great example of that, where MailChimp are like, hey, you want to market your small business, we've got a platform, we do it all. Whereas if you're a larger business, you're not using MailChimp, you're using the best display advertising company like an AdRoll. You're using the best email, and you stitch them together. As we looked at the jobs to be done for our product, the job, the sort of support job was the one that our technology could solve the largest proportion of the stack. And so as we thought about like kind of the share of wallet that we could own across our different buyers, which predominantly like basically the marketing sales buyer and the support buyer, the two kind of key buyers. That was the one that we felt was the biggest opportunity because of that total addressable market. And I do think that like a lot of the time when I see people do sort of the TAM analysis, the big mistake that they make is this concept of they'll look at the full like support industry TAM, which is like probably $1 trillion or something mental, right? Rather than looking actually realistically for the kind of sub job within that broader job to be done that your product can solve, what truly is your like serviceable addressable market, right? Like what can you actually service?
Right.
And so yeah, that's why we focus on support mainly. We think that there's a massive opportunity there to kind of modernize that industry.
Smart. Well, last question before we let you go. You know, now that we're almost halfway through January, if you can believe it. So we're sort of hitting our stride into the new year. Lots of runway ahead of us. What's something that you're really excited about as part of sort of Intercom's go-to-market play, and what's something that you're sort of are, I don't know if it's fearful or just sort of cautious about that you're sort of keeping an eye on to make sure it works?
Yeah, I think I'm probably most excited about the fact that by focusing on like the support audience, we have this opportunity to like build a full end-to-end solution. And the Intercom product team is absolutely bananas good at like just shipping incredible product. And with that focus, I think that we can not only build a brand and build a product around that. I think that's really, really exciting that focus gives you. I think what I'm probably most nervous about is we do need to make sure there's like a trade-off of focus, right? Like if you do overly focus and then you just sort of like let go of another part of your business, that you open up sort of like a revenue gap. And so we're definitely not walking away from the sales and marketing audience. In fact, like we would argue that today our technology is the best, and I think it is. And we just need to make sure that we don't, by focusing primarily for this year in support, that we don't lose our sort of market lead on that side too.
Yeah. Yeah. Good, love it. Well, Shane Murphy-Reuter, SVP marketing at Intercom. Thanks so much for joining us, sharing some insights. It's going to be an interesting year. I think there's a lot of sort of still headwinds in front of us, but a lot of good runway and a lot of opportunity as well. So thank you very much for joining us, sharing a little bit about your unpredictable pipeline. Thanks everyone for joining us and watching. We'll see you next time.